Hello everyone, I'm Cleo Wright, and this is Nomad's Vault. I'm here with my friend, the Soapbox Hero.
Hey everyone.
The idea behind this podcast is to delve into important historical events that have helped shape the world and that we still feel the effects of today. History is an excellent indicator of where we could be going based on what we've already come from. So today we're talking about Caesar Augustus, also known as Octavian, and the beginning of Pax Romana, kind of how that all unfolded. So Pax Romana really started in 44 BC.
When you say Pax Romana, what is that?
Pax Romana is Latin for the Roman peace.
Roman peace.
So it's a period of time that spanned from, I believe it was 23 BC to about 180 AD, or
Okay.
or CE, whatever you want to use. It ended with the reign of with the death of Marcus Aurelius, who was one of the later Roman emperors, and it started with Octavian, who was later known as Caesar Augustus, who was the official first emperor of the Roman Empire.
Cool. So we're going to hear the story of how it started.
Exactly.
Cool. All right.
So Octavian was the great nephew of Julius Caesar.
Okay.
We've all heard that name,
Yep.
and everyone kind of thinks of him as the first Roman emperor.
Right.
That's what he was trying to do, which is why the Senate had him assassinated. There's no proof that they actually gave the task to Brutus and what was the other guy's name? Longinus. Brutus and Longinus. There's no yeah, I like him. There's no indication that Senate actually paid for the assassination, but they certainly turned a blind eye when it did happen. Well, at this time, Octavian, who was already at 15, he had been named the prefect of Rome. He'd already had formal oratory training. He'd already
Oratory.
Oratory is speech, so public speaking.
Okay.
Back in Roman society at that point, if you were in a position of political power, you had to have some kind of a oratory training in how to speak properly, so that you didn't sound like a commoner.
Right.
So you didn't sound like part of the plebeian class.
Okay.
So yeah, senators were actually an individual caste in Roman society. They were their own little class. So like how we have lower class, middle class, upper class based on how we were paid. There was a senatorial class that had that political power solely because they were born into a family who had political power at one point.
So not the Senate the way that most people would hear the word
No.
and think of Senate as an elected official.
Exactly. Now the word Senate that we use now does come from this idea, because the idea of the Roman Senate was to be representatives of the plebeian class, who were the farmers, the craftsmen, the workers. Soldiers kind of fell in between, but generally soldiers rose up from the plebeian class or continued on to the senatorial class. So it was kind of a stepping stone.
Or they died.
Or they died, and a lot of them died. We
Right.
all know Roman history is rife with war and conquest.
Yeah, it's pretty common back then.
So,
But not during this.
but
time
not
that
during
we're
this
about
time.
To talk about.
They were at war with the Parthians. They had been at war with the Parthians for centuries. The Parthians are from what is now modern-day Syria. So, kind of east of Turkey. Turkey was the extent of the Roman Empire at that point in time, and the Parthians were former Persians who were at war with them. And the Romans were expanding their borders and everything like that. That'll actually come into play a little bit later with how Octavian maintained his power.
Okay.
So Octavian, at the time that Julius Caesar, we digress, at the time Julius Caesar was assassinated, Octavian was out east, studying abroad, essentially. When he learned of his uncle's death, he returned to Italy, returned to his home city, and gathered 700,000, I believe they were called sectarans at the time, which was their currency that Julius Caesar had left for him. He also learned that Julius Caesar had named him officially his heir. So he decided to take this 700,000 and march to Rome. Along the way, he gathered thousands of troops. When he got to Rome, things were a little wild and crazy. Mark Antony, who was the consul of the Senate, He was he was the spokesman of the Senate. He wasn't a senator, but he was the spokesman for the senators. Had granted amnesty to Brutus and Longinus and Cicero. Brutus and Longinus had gone east into Anatolia, into Turkey and everything like that, and taken control there. Well, Octavian gets there, gains loyalty of 2 of Mark Antony's legions. Mark Antony decides it's a little hot for me here right now, so he goes to the Alps. He goes east to the Alps, or I'm sorry, west to the Alps.
I guess you could get there if you went east.
You could, but it would take a long time, and I don't think they had, without magnetism, I don't think they would have made it through the Pacific. Maybe, who knows. Things get a little weird. Octavian, the whole beginning of his rise to power can be seen as kind of snake-like, if you will. He wasn't real honest and upfront. So,
with who? So all the people that he had to worry about
everyone.
left. So what did he need to?
Well, he still has to, as Caesar's heir, it's not an empire yet, so he can't just walk in and take control from the Senate.
What was it?
It was
It's
a
not
republic.
an empire.
A republic. So a republic is essentially what we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be a democratic republic where you
Right.
have a senatorial class that is the elected representatives of the plebeian class. In this, it was, like I said, it was selected a little bit differently. It had more to do with who you were and who you were born to than being elected. But they were supposed to be the representatives for the people.
So how do you make him his heir? If it's an election.
That goes into politics that I did not investigate into.
I just feel like if Trump got shot and he was like,
Right.
I'll leave it to my heir, they'd be like, nobody cares about your heir.
Yeah,
You know?
the Roman politics at the time was there was a Senate, but there was also like a monarch almost. So it's a lot like the way England is. So they have the Parliament, but they also have the Queen, and the Queen has heirs. It's kind of the same. It's a monarchical republic. So Caesar was the monarch, and what he was trying to do was consolidate all his power and turn it into an empire, to where he had all the control. He was trying to take the control away from the Senate, which is why he was assassinated.
Sounds like JFK.
People thought he was being too autocratic. So, Mark Antony leaves. He goes and he moves.
Why are we talking about Mark Antony right now? Tell me about Octavian. I don't give a shit. Mark
No,
Antony
it's
was
important. It's important. It's important to the to how Octavian is able to rise to power.
there. Okay.
Yeah. So, Octavian returns to Rome. Mark Antony loses loyalty of 2 of his legions to Octavian. Mark Antony decides, I need to get out of Rome. He goes to Gaul and besieges a gentleman by the name of Decimus Brutus. Decimus Brutus was not the Brutus from the Shakespeare Julius Caesar play. He was not the main assassin. So there were 2 Brutuses that helped assassinate Julius Caesar. So he besieges Decimus Brutus, and Senate doesn't like that, because Senate decided that the assassins were free and clear for the assassination. So they tell Octavian, hey, go out to Gaul and defeat Mark Antony. Octavian goes to Gaul, defeats Mark Antony, but in the process, there were 2 consuls that took over after Mark Antony. Don't ask me why. There were. They both die in the fighting. So once Mark Antony's siege is broken and he's defeated, Senate says, okay, Octavian, turn over control of Gaul to Decimus Brutus. Octavian says, I think I have a better idea. How about you make me the consul and we clear Mark Antony's name as being a traitor to Rome. Senate doesn't like that, so they refuse. So Octavian turns around and marches back to Rome against the Senate. Mark Antony goes to Hispania, where he enlists the help of a man named...
So hold on. Mark Antony's still alive.
He's still
What
alive.
do you mean he defeated him?
He
defeated him how?
He defeated his army.
So
He
why
broke
wouldn't
the
he
siege.
kill him? That's what you do.
But he didn't, because he's smart. Because he wants Mark Antony's troops, and he wants Mark Antony's assistance in creating an empire.
So okay. So Mark Antony arranges a coup to kill his uncle. So his uncle dies,
It's
and
not...
he's afraid of Octavian. He's like, oh, he's gonna think I did this. So he leaves. He runs away to one of the co-conspirators of the whole deal.
Besieges the co-conspirator.
Besiege. What does that mean?
Lays siege to their city, attacks them,
Okay.
encamps around the city, and tries to starve them out. So he's now fighting his co-conspirator.
Okay. So he does that,
Mm-hmm.
and then Octavian
Mm-hmm.
goes over there and defeats all of them, or defeats him, stops him from, like, starving out Brutus,
Correct.
right? But he doesn't kill him.
Nope.
He just kills a bunch of his people, enough for the dude to be like, all right, enough, we get it, like, we'll stop.
Strange, isn't it?
So then he's like,
That's
okay, cool, stop doing that, now get out of here. But he keeps all of his people.
Mm-hmm.
Keeps all of his troops, but lets the leader of those troops leave. Okay, I think I'm caught up.
Okay. It's really weird.
Yeah, that doesn't... certainly not anything we would do now.
No, absolutely not.
So
Absolutely.
anyway,
So Mark Antony goes to Hispania and
Okay.
enlists the help of a man named Lepidus, who is the ruler over Hispania, so the entire Iberian Peninsula, Spain, Portugal.
Mm-hmm. Enlists them for what?
Just to help. They're not saying it yet, but they're enlisting help to create the empire.
To help Octavian.
To help Octavian.
So he goes in there, kills most of his people, takes the rest of them,
Yep.
and now this dude is like at his debt.
Yep.
Like, I'm gonna support you after I killed your uncle.
That's exactly what's going on.
Okay.
Aren't we glad we don't
It's a
live in
roller
Rome?
coaster.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Okay.
So Octavian returns to Rome.
Mm-hmm.
Senate doesn't have an army because Octavian took them all. So Senate has to give him consulship.
By force.
By
or
force.
Or by
yeah,
force.
by force.
Right, basically.
So this is the beginning of what's called the triumvirate, the second triumvirate. Mark Antony, Lepidus, Octavian, the second triumvirate. So now that they have kind of control over the Senate,
What is a triumvirate? 3 people ruling?
3 people, yep, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So what they do is they split up the empire, or they split up the republic. It's not an empire yet. They split up the republic. They give Lepidus North Africa. He's kind of a third wheel. All he really did was give troops. He didn't do a whole lot else.
So you get North Africa.
Yep.
Sucker.
Mark Antony takes the east, everything east of Rome, east of Italy, and Octavian takes everything west of Italy. So in 40 BCE, Mark Antony decides he's going to wage another campaign against the Parthians. We talked about them a little bit before.
Right.
They were modern day Syria.
Old one.
He screws up bad. So he goes to Octavian and says, hey, give me some troops to go defeat the Parthians. And Octavian says, nope, you can do it on your own. So Mark Antony decides to go enlist the help of Cleopatra, his lover. He marches on Parthia with a combined Egyptian-Roman force and does not protect his supply lines properly, and the Parthians decimate their armies. He's forced to retreat. The king of Armenia at that point in time was a member of the Republic, kind of one of the outlying territories of the Republic, and he didn't give Antony any kind of assistance, so he kind of betrayed Rome based on that.
But Octavian didn't give him anything either, so
Nope.
how was one a betrayer and not the other?
Because Octavian is higher than Mark Antony in
The hierarchy? So
the hierarchy.
the other guy, what you're saying is the other guy shouldn't have had a choice and should have given those people
In that
up
society,
because
yep.
he was lower.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So in 36 BCE, Lepidus, you remember talking about him,
Mhm.
he was given North Africa, he decides to try to land grab Sicily. So Sicily was
From who?
From Octavian. This is all so convoluted and crazy, is it not?
Well, I'm just trying to keep track. Man.
Yeah,
There's a lot
absolutely.
going on.
So He tries to land grab Sicily from Octavian. Octavian says, "Oh, you can't do that. Now you're out of the triumvirate." So now Lepidus is exiled, and his lands are taken. So now Octavian has control of North Africa and the entire west of the Republic. And he continues to consolidate his power that way. So now the triumvirate is down to a biumvirate?
Tag team?
Tag team. Yep.
Dynamic duo?
Yep. The dynamic duo, Mark Antony and Octavian. So back on Mark Antony's side of the world, he's able to muster a new force and attacks the Parthians. Again. Screws up again. Forced to retreat, but on the way back, he beats up on the king of Armenia. Well, he marches back to Alexandria in Egypt, which was, at the time, Cairo was not the capital of Egypt. Alexandria was the capital of Egypt. So he marches back to Alexandria to celebrate his quote-unquote victory over the king of Armenia. The Romans do not like this. Victory celebrations in war were generally reserved for Rome at that point in time. It's kind of one of those, well, that's going against our code of honor. At the same time, they didn't like Cleopatra. They saw her as, she was Julius Caesar's consort, and now she's Mark Antony's consort, and they see her as an invader and as a foreign whore, and
Yoko Ono.
Yeah, exactly, Yoko Ono. So, the worst part about this was in the speech that Mark Antony gave at this victory celebration. It's called the Donations of Alexandria. The Donations of Alexandria. He officially declared that Cleopatra and Julius Caesar's son, Caesarion, is the true heir to the Roman Empire. To the Roman Republic. You can see how that might tick Octavian off just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, at that point, Octavian's fed up with it. He tells Mark Antony he's done. Mark Antony attacks Actium, and this is one of the most decisive naval battles in the history of the empire. Octavian absolutely annihilates Mark Antony and Cleopatra's navy. Mark Antony and Cleopatra, being who they were, decided to turn around and run away. They left most of their navy there to be destroyed. They returned to Alexandria with only about 60 ships. Well, Octavian decided to chase them down. Chases them all the way to Alexandria, lays siege to Alexandria. Mark Antony tries to put up one last stand and is crushed by Octavian's superior force. At that point, he's frantic. He's trying to find Cleopatra, and she doesn't want to see him because she's embarrassed. Because she's embarrassed, and she's
a failure.
Yep, exactly. And she's afraid.
How many battles do you have to lose, man? I mean, wasn't Octavian had to beat him early?
Yep.
While he was trying to beat on his own friend, he was never successful.
That's 5 in the story so far.
Yeah, some people don't learn lessons.
The siege of Brutus against Octavian, lost that. The first campaign against Parthia, lost that. The second campaign against Parthia, lost that. The Battle of Actium, lost that. And now Alexandria. And this is the capital of Egypt. Egypt wasn't part of the Roman Republic at that point in time. They were independent. So Cleopatra doesn't want to see him. And in his anguish, I guess is the best way to put it, he stabs himself repeatedly in the stomach, as a failure drama king would.
So he killed himself?
He tried to. He failed.
Oh, yeah, he just inflicted wounds upon himself. Okay. Just wanted to clarify what...
So Cleopatra hears about this and has one of her servants bring Mark Antony to her, because now she feels bad because he stabbed himself.
Oh, I thought you were like, she killed him.
No. He does die. He dies in her arms, and then she, quote-unquote, takes the asp, so she allows a pet asp that she had to bite her, and she dies. Well, now Mark Antony's dead. Cleopatra's dead. Egypt's ripe for the taking, and Octavian is the last surviving member of the triumvirate. He goes one step further, and this is something that we kind of see. I mean, it's pretty horrible of him to do, but he kills Caesarion, the young child, the one who was...
Yeah, you got to protect your investment.
Yeah, exactly. So at this point, the triumvirate's over.
If Game of Thrones has taught me anything, You kill all the
Kill
babies.
all the babies.
That might be a problem in the future.
Otherwise, they're going to come attack you with 3 big giant dragons.
Yeah.
Of course, they only had the one by the time they got to King's Landing.
Yeah, she didn't take very good care of those dragons. I would have been far more nervous about those things getting hurt.
Yep.
That's the only thing you had, man. That's the only
Yep.
reason you were in control.
Yep, exactly.
Can't keep losing. Anyway, we digress.
Yes. So now the triumvirate's over. Octavian remains the most powerful man.
Right.
He stands the most powerful man
Sure.
in the Republic. So he returns to Rome, and as a celebration of this, he takes a new name. He takes the name Augustus.
Okay.
He's given the name Augustus in 27 BCE by the Senate, and Augustus means illustrious one. So there's this big, long name that he's called at this point, and it's funny to me. Yeah, there it is, right there. He changes his name to Imperator Caesar Divifilius Augustus. So that's his name. Emperor Augustus, son of a god. Caesar had been raised up to the status of a god at that point. So Romans and their big, long, fancy Latin names.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, when you have to go to school for speaking, I'm sure the names are, there's a lot more meaning to the word than now.
Yep.
Names don't mean a whole lot.
Absolutely. And back at this time, you were given names, or you had to earn names. I couldn't just walk off from the farm one day and say, "Hey, I'm Augustus now. I'm the illustrious one now."
No, you're a peasant, bro. Your name's
Get back to the
Greg.
Get back to the field.
Shut up, Greg.
Greg. Shut up.
Go
Greg.
back to the fields, Greg. You're not Augustus. You're not illustrious. Greg.
Stupid Greg.
Go back.
Go back to harvesting
Yeah.
wheat.
Go
you
milk a
peasant.
cow, Greg. You freaking dolt. Try to come up in here.
So here's where Octavian really starts ramping up his consolidation of power. He removes around 300 senators that weren't 100% loyal to him. He kind of stacked the Senate all along the way here, with senators who were loyal to him.
Yeah, he wanted yes men, people that would do what he wanted and supported his word.
He
for
also
sure.
removed-
Who doesn't want that?
I mean, everyone would like it.
Yeah. I mean, if you could do it, why not?
Yep. He also removes around 1,000 equestrians, and equestrians were a rank in the Roman Empire.
Okay. He got rid of a bunch of people that weren't on Team Augustus.
Right, exactly.
Cool. All right.
He got rid of a bunch of people who weren't on Team Augustus.
Here we go.
So here's where historians generally agree that Pax Romana started in 23 BCE when he did this. Senate votes Militum Imperium. Nope, I'm sorry. Imperium Maius, supreme power to Octavian. So now at this point, he is completely in control
Of
the Senate of Rome, of the whole Republic.
How far-reaching is Rome at this point?
At this point, it extends from Spain into Turkey, all of North Africa, including Egypt, and then north to the Rhine and the Danube. The rivers in Germany.
Okay.
Yeah, so
it
doesn't quite go into Netherlands, but most of Germany, all of France, all of that is part of. This is the greatest extent of the Roman Empire. And we can see right here. This was all the Roman Empire right here.
They're controlling all that water.
They're controlling the Mediterranean.
Yeah,
the Mediterranean has long been a disputed piece of water.
Okay.
So, he's voted Imperium Maius, Latin words. Supreme power. He has control of the Roman Republic. He establishes a peace with the Parthians. The ones that Mark Antony
kept kicking his ass.
Mark Antony, yep, exactly. He creates the first institutionalized firefighting and police forces. He starts building roads. So the big, long Roman road network that everyone knows so much about, that have stood the test of time, that was all Octavian. Octavian created that.
Good road builder.
Yep, correct. Absolutely. Enacted sweeping tax reforms. So what he did there was he leveled the taxes. Previously, individual tax officials had the ability to raise or lower taxes depending on how much they wanted to line their pockets, Augustus did away with that. So Octavian at this point is Augustus.
Right.
Just so we don't get confused.
Yeah.
So he does away with that, and he creates a flat tax for everyone in the Republic. And it's really an empire at this point. This is generally viewed as the true start of the Roman Empire.
Mm-hmm.
He incentivizes families for having more than 3 children. He penalizes families that don't have children, and he makes adultery illegal. He oversaw some of the most important...
What was the point of that? Wouldn't you think people banging neighbors would get you more kids?
Well...
That seems like it'd defeat your purpose.
Yeah, I'm not...
Is it a religious thing?
Yes. No. The Romans were not... The Romans were pretty
moral
lascivious.
Thing? I mean, why would he... It just seems counterproductive. If you want people to procreate as much as possible, why would you put restrictions on how they procreate?
Right.
Especially when back then they were pretty liberal about,
who
sleeps with who.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
You know.
The impression that I got from my research was that it prevented feuds. So, say guy A has a child with girl A, and then has a child with girl B.
Uh-huh.
Well, now which of the girl B or girl A's families is the true heir to that person's, all his property or whatever the case may be. I think it was more geared towards that. It was more geared towards keeping pure bloodlines.
I guess logistically that would make sense. You wouldn't want to have to worry about... Yeah, okay. I'll buy that. Sure.
Okay. So, at this time he also started and completed some of the most important Roman construction projects. The Baths of Agrippa. You've heard about Roman baths. The Baths of Agrippa were kind of the ultimate example of that. The Pantheon, the Forum of Augustus, and a forum is a speaking place, which was important at that point in time, and then the Temple of Caesar. So he created those 4. He planned and carried out those 4 projects, and then the other thing that the thing that we really that still affects us today is the 8th month of the year is named after August. So after he took control of Rome, he had to do 4 main things to keep the senators happy and kind of create the illusion that it was still a republic. It was still governed by people representing the people, by men representing the people, and not an autocracy, not a dictatorship. So he had to...
But they gave him absolute power, so why would he need to...
They voted that he had absolute power for 10 years.
Okay, it seems like an arbitrary...
So kind of like voting a leader emergency power. So Star Wars, for example, voting Palpatine emergency powers. You've never seen Star Wars?
Nah, man. Sorry.
Bro.
I've seen it, but it's not like I base things off of it.
Well, for my listeners who watch Star Wars,
there you go.
voting Emperor Palpatine, Supreme Chancellor, emergency powers. So basically he has the ability to create armies and kind of do whatever he wants, but he's still, quote-unquote, under the oversight of the Senate, but not really.
Yeah, they said it. Is just this group of elites that are not elected.
They're selected by their individual groups of people based on their family and their status.
But it's not a vote.
No.
So who selects them?
The people so you'll have an area of like farmers, and you'll have some noblemen in that area, and those people will... I guess it kind of is a vote. It's not a vote in the way we experience it today. They get together and they say, okay, this person is going to be our mouthpiece for this farm area. And everyone did that in their individual areas. So there were over 1,000 senators across the Roman Republic.
Okay.
So he had to do these 4 things to mask the fact that Rome had essentially turned into a dictatorship. He had to secure the northern frontiers, which were a highly disputed territory. He had to reduce the size and the strength of the army. He had to help the struggling farmers. The farmers were starving and not making money. And he had to promote confidence among the senators, making them think that they still had control. So with the northern frontier, he decided to extend the empire no further north, so it stops at the Rhine and Danube, just south of Netherlands. He built fortifications along that, and then he reinforced those. So this is the extent of the Roman Empire at this point in time, and it's reinforced. So barbarians and Germanic barbarians can't come into the Roman Empire and wreak havoc.
Got it.
He reduced the size of the army just overall. He offered cash settlements to soldiers who had served over 20 years, so kind of a pension thing going on there. Mm-hmm. He paid the soldiers who were remaining more than they were making, and then he took this army, removed it completely from Rome proper, from the city of Rome, and spread them out across the empire, so that there were no large pockets of soldiers that could potentially uprise against him. He also created the Praetorian Guard, which were around 9,000 only Italian-born Romans who served as Augustus's personal bodyguards. Mm-hmm. So they were paid significantly more. Later on, they actually helped select new emperors. I use the term select very loosely because when they got involved, usually it involved bloodshed and killing the other potential emperor. Mm-hmm. They were also Rome's security against the regular army. Then to help the struggling urban population, the farmers, like I talked about, he incentivized families. He gave them more money. He evened out the taxes so they weren't starving because they were paying these tax officials too much. And then to promote the senatorial class, he took the title of consul and tribune. So consul, we've talked about that, is the spokesman of the Senate, and then tribune is there are two separate levels of tribune. There's tribune militum, which is a high rank in the military, and then the tribune pleb, which has the power to convene meetings between the plebeian class to summon the Senate to propose legislation. So essentially what our senators in this country do, that's what the tribune pleb was. So now he's got all these titles. He's got supreme power, he's the consul and the tribune, and he has the largest army. So at this point he's consolidated all of his power and the empire is born. Mm-hmm. There were a few flaws, so because of the road system and because of how he had everything set up tax-wise, the entire empire was interconnected. So if one section did fall, then it would affect the entire section, or the entire empire. It wouldn't just affect that one section of the empire. Right. And then slave labor was still a problem, which slave labor in general is a problem, but they relied on it heavily. But
well, how is it a problem?
They didn't want to work. They weren't getting paid enough. I guess they paid their slaves. Roman slaves were weird. They were not Roman citizens, but they were still paid to work. And he couldn't ever really find a solution to that problem. So, some successes of the Augustinian system were he taught Romans to not just view themselves as Romans, but to view themselves as the chosen people across the world, that it was their job, their position, their divine right to spread peace and prosperity all across the world, not just the Roman Empire, not just Italy or anything like that, but all across the world. Pax Romana, in and of itself, the entire period from 23 BC to 180 AD, rivaled the Greek Golden Age under Pericles, which is where the Greek city-states were all united. Athens and Sparta weren't fighting each other, and they were all united under one banner. When Greece saw the largest extent of its empire. I guess it was an empire, Greek Empire. They didn't have an emperor though. And then some free speech did remain. He encouraged philosophy. He wasn't a dictator that completely shut people up. He encouraged philosophy. He encouraged art. And then the construction projects that he completed and carried out were for the people. The forum and the baths and everything like that were for these Roman citizens to live lavishly. So Pax Romana, when it ended officially in 180 AD, and the Roman Empire lasted until 235 CE, and then that culminated in the sack of Rome by Alaric the Visigoth in 410 CE, and that's where the Roman Empire was truly destroyed, and it was all split back up among the people in those areas. Augustus's son, Tiberius, was a tyrant. Once he took power, the facade fell, and people realized, oh, we're living in a dictatorship now. So, overall, I see, I kind of see Augustus as a success. I mean, he ushered in the Pax Romana, and he was able to create the Roman road system and tax reform and everything like that. So it's hard for me to decide if he's a tyrant or a hero. He definitely did some really shady stuff up front, some really bad stuff up front, but the end result was the Golden Age of Rome that lasted for 200 years. So that's about it in a nutshell. That's the Rise of Octavian. If you enjoyed this content, you can find me at Facebook, Nomad's Vault. You can find him at The Soapbox Hero. He also has a podcast. You should definitely check that out. And that's all we have for today. Y'all have a good day.
Thanks. Shit. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name's Cleo Wright, and this is... What is this show called again?
You're going to want to keep these for, like, your fucking blooper reel. Like, I don't even know the name of my own fucking show.
Oh, my God.